Nestled in the Bavarian mountains lies a castle that inspired fairy tales, but today it's inspiring something else, a plein air painting adventure through autumn forests and legendary views. In this video, I'll take you on an artistic journey through the Bavarian landscape surrounding Neuschwanstein Castle. From exploring its iconic exterior to hiking through autumn forests, I'll find the perfect spot to paint distant mountains with watercolour and gouache. By the end, you'll see how I capture the magic of this fairy tale setting through my art. I started my adventure in the small town below Neuschwanstein Castle, dropped off by the bus. After checking the local map, I began my ascent up the hill. The path was alive with tourists, some taking the horse-drawn carriage that clattered past me on its way up to the castle's base. From this vantage point in the town, you could already glimpse the breathtaking view of Neuschwanstein Castle, nestled among the trees and framed by a neighbouring mountain. It was tempting to stop and paint right there, but I decided to press on, hoping to find an even better spot further along. As I climbed higher, the scenery became even more magical. The morning light filtered through the trees, illuminating small waterfalls that trickled down either side of the trail. When I reached the foot of the castle, it truly felt like stepping into a fairy tale. The lush greens and golden yellows of the trees shimmered in the sunlight, naturally drawing your eye upward to the castle's soaring turrets and spires. And it's no surprise, Neuschwanstein Castle was designed to embody a dream. Built by King Ludwig II of Bavaria in the late 19th century, it was never meant to serve as a fortress or a home for royalty. Instead, Ludwig envisioned it as his personal retreat, inspired by the operas of composer Richard Wagner and stories of medieval romance. Interestingly, King Ludwig II was a mysterious figure, often called the fairy tale king. He lived as a recluse, pouring his personal fortune into building this castle and others, which eventually left him bankrupt. Shortly before the castle was finished, Ludwig was declared insane and died under strange circumstances. To this day, no one knows exactly how he died, adding to the castle's mystique. At the base, I took my time exploring the surroundings before joining a tour inside the castle. While video or photos weren't allowed, I can tell you that the interiors were incredible. The walls and ceilings were adorned with intricate paintings depicting Norse mythology, epic sagas, and legendary tales. Ludwig wanted the interiors to reflect his love of myths, creating a space where imagination came to life. From one of the castle's balconies, I spotted an old rickety bridge connecting two forested mountain ridges. An American woman I met mentioned that the views from the bridge were spectacular, so after the tour, I set off to see it for myself. On the way, I came across another artist selling beautiful watercolour paintings of the castle. We chatted for a bit, and as we spoke, a few tourists stopped by to purchase his work. It was inspiring to see someone bringing their art directly to the people, and it reminded me why I love being an artist. When I finally reached the bridge, the views were absolutely worth the hike. Neuschwanstein Castle stood in all its glory, perched against the dramatic Bavarian landscape. From there, I crossed to the other side of the bridge and wandered deeper into the forest paths. Eventually, I found a quiet, slightly hidden spot off the beaten path with a fantastic view. In front of me were distant mountains framed by vibrant autumn trees on either side, a perfect subject for a painting. I set up my easel, sketched out my composition, and began layering watercolours and gouache. There's something truly magical about plein air painting. When you're out in nature, immersed in the sights, sounds and smells around you, it's like time slows down. As I painted that autumn scene, I found myself entering a flow state, completely absorbed in the moment. My focus sharpened and the distractions of the world faded away. There's an unspoken connection between the artist and the landscape, where every brushstroke feels like a dialogue with nature itself. Painting outdoors doesn't just capture a scene, it captures the energy, the atmosphere, and even the emotions of the place. A few hikers passed by, pausing to watch me paint and offering kind words about my work. It felt like a true plein air moment, immersed in the landscape with just enough time to capture its essence before the rain began to fall. As the light faded and the drizzle turned steady, I made my final strokes of opaque paint and quickly packed up my gear. On my way back across the bridge, I stopped to capture the changed scenery, the castle shrouded in mist and rain. The rain softened the edges of its grand spires and turrets, making it look even more like a dream suspended in time. The mist curled around the surrounding forest and mountains, giving the entire landscape an ethereal quality, as though the castle was a hidden secret emerging from the clouds just for a moment. It felt mysterious, almost otherworldly, like stepping into the pages of a fantasy novel. The rain added a layer of quiet drama, amplifying the already magical atmosphere. It was a sight that made me pause, completely captivated, as I tried to soak in every detail before continuing my descent. Back down in the town centre, I waited for my bus to Munich while trying to protect my painting with a thin plastic bag. A kind local man who was making donuts nearby offered me a sturdier bag to keep it safe. It was a simple gesture, but one that meant a lot in that moment. On the bus, I noticed that parts of my painting had been smudged and distorted by the rain. Later back home, I carefully restored these details, bringing the scene back to life while preserving the memory of that rainy autumn day. I decided to get my artist tape back out in order to keep the painting attached to my desk area without me moving it out of sight and out of vision of the camera. I decided to go straight in with loading some direct yellow cadmium deep paint straight from the tube. These were over the plant areas sticking above the trees that I saw. And then I begin bringing in 2 different shades of green back into the lower half of the painting, both olive green and sap green. I also bring back some raw umber and burnt sienna for the branches and twigs of the trees. I'm mainly focusing on the lower part of the painting because that is where the most damage was caused, and I'm deciding to bring in different values and tones and chromas, different colours and saturations of these greens into the lower half, the very lowest part of the painting, and just trying to replicate as close as possible to what I had actually achieved on location in the Bavarian forests. Basically, all I'm doing here is looking at a snapshot, a screenshot, I should say, of my original painting that I took on video on my phone, and I'm using that as a reference point to try and replicate it as closely as I can. So I've been laying in the greenery of the branches of the tree areas below, and then painting some of the stems and branches of the trees above that, trying to bring in the darkest darks in the foreground, of course, mixing the raw umber with cadmium blue or ultramarine blue, and lowering the saturation and the darkness by adding some titanium white to some of the mixtures. And I do the same with some of the greens as well. Titanium white will desaturate the colour and also make it lighter in appearance. Again, here I'm going quite heavily with the paint mixtures. I haven't mixed a huge amount of paint, but enough where I can lay down some very thick and opaque marks. And then finally I come back in with some pure titanium white just to touch up on the cloud areas and bring some of that texture in to help to draw your eye closer to the focal point, which is the mountains in the distance. I hope that the details on the plants in the foreground and the midground doesn't bring too much attention away from the mountains. Now, after I removed the masking tape, I realised that there's a few little bits around the border that just need cleaning up. So I grabbed my brush, clean it, and load it with titanium white, and I just carefully go over those areas where the paint has gone beyond the border that I made with my masking tape, and this just helps create that really nice, beautiful, clean finish. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please do like, share and subscribe. And if you've ever wanted to capture that magical flow state while painting on plein air, I've got the perfect resource for you. My free book, Maintain Artistic Flow and Productivity, is packed with tips to help you stay focused, inspired and in the zone, whether you're painting outdoors or in the studio. You can download it now by clicking the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.